Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. And boy, oh boy, we have got a story episode today. I mean, I can't even begin to put it into words, folks. So I'm going to hand a lot of this over to the man of the hour. But we've got William Steele here on the show today. William's got a few books up under his belt: Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst. Also, a book on Ghislaine Maxwell, Sensational and Impure. And he's also got an upcoming TV show pretty soon that we're going to get into. He's got a heck of a story, even a heck of a team behind him. His PR team, his co-writers. He's got a whole team of people with him. We're going to introduce each one of those here today in this interview. But let's start off from the beginning, man. William, how are you, and where in the world are you at? Because it looks like you're having a fantastic view there wherever you're located.
I'm enjoying the scenery here in Boca Raton at my friend's condo, overlooking the beautiful Atlantic Ocean. It's a gorgeous scene.
Man, I tell you what, all I got's a bottle of water, so you're doing a lot better than me.
I spent today in the ocean. Part of my story is I did not 18 years for nonviolent crime. I've been out about 14 months, and today's the first day I've been in the ocean in all that time. And all I used to do before was fish and scuba dive, so I really missed it.
Wow.
Yes.
So you want to introduce your team here before we kind of get started in your story? Because I know they're kind of big in helping you get your story out there and your face seen and heard. So let's introduce those guys.
We could do it in chronological order. So
All
first of all, I did a lot of time. I was a jewel thief, art thief, did a lot of time. Nobody, a lot of people cut you off. People show their true colors when you do time.
Oh,
These
yeah.
gentlemen stepped up to the plate. I met them through various ways, but Gary Greenberg is the co-author on Sex and the Serial Killer. He's a true crime writer. He used to write for the National Enquirer and all these other publications.
Okay.
He and I decided to work on a book together, and then we focused on my former friendship with Robert Durst, the wealthiest serial killer in American history. So Gary continues to write. He now has this book out, and here he goes right here.
The Beer Diet. I tell you what, I'm going to need a copy of that, my friend. I'll get you my address because that's something I need to try out right there for sure.
It's not only the beer diet, it's the beer diet, how to drink beer and not gain weight.
You sold me.
So a little plug for him. I love the guy. He took all my phone calls, and we drove each other crazy. I drove him crazy, mostly because he didn't have to pick up the phone. And I think half the time I drove his wife crazy, with all my calls and questions. And, but anyway.
I met Bill because I was on the jury for a murder trial, and the judge knew that I worked for the National Enquirer. So he always used to say, Gary, you can't put this in the National Enquirer. Bill was a witness for the defense to help this guy who was basically innocent get out of being a murder rap. And he contacted me after the trial and said he had a lot of great stories, and we maintained a letter relationship through jail while he was in jail. And then eventually he asked me if I could help him write this book about Durst, and that's how we got together.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, I've read kind of the cliff notes of this book, and I've heard a few sit downs that Mr. Steele has done, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading that because it sounds like quite a tale.
Well, we appreciate that. Hopefully your readers can look at that and look at some of the other things that you'll see on my own YouTube channel on Official William Steele. Please subscribe.
Absolutely. We're going to put show notes to all those things here. In the show notes, we're going to put a link to your YouTube channel. I know you're trying to get that up and started off the ground. Links to all your books. Definitely one to the beer diet there too, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The thing that really impressed me about Bill was that he was always interested in the victims. And since he's gotten out, he's been an advocate for victims. And he's done a lot in his short time. I'll let him tell you more about it. To really help people. And that's what impressed me. That's why I got involved with him. And I'm very glad that I did.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you. And that's always a great thing when somebody can take something that's a negative, like doing that many years in prison, and get out and do positive things with it. Because not everybody can do that. Sometimes that can crush a person's spirit, soul. Sometimes they don't even want to leave prison. You see that in the movies. Sometimes they spend so long in there, they don't even want to go back to the outside world. They become acclimated.
He kind of crushed my soul sometimes while we were trying to write this book.
Well, I'm
But,
glad you guys got it done, man. You sound like you got a great teammate there, and I hope you guys keep pressing and do a lot of great things.
all right. Thanks. Great talking to you.
Same to you, my friend.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Hey, just for 1 second, do you want me to turn this light up a little brighter, or is it getting a little too dark here?
Nah, you good.
Okay.
If it starts to get dark, I'll let you know.
Okay, I can adjust that. Okay, so next up in chronological order there would be Tom Madden. Tom Madden, former vice president of NBC.
Right on.
He came into my life when Gary interviewed him for a story, and Tom, being this consummate salesman that he is, convinced us to hire him and his firm to represent us. And he has Transmedia Group, public relations firm, Boca Raton. He writes many, many books, and this is his latest book.
Wordshine Man. All right.
Wordshine Man. And that's Tips for Polishing Words Until They Sparkle by Tom Madden, available on Amazon. Tips for doing good PR and wording things properly. The man's got is a freaking genius.
So for any podcasters out there, that'd probably be a good book to pick up.
I'm not a freaking genius. I'm a genius. You know, leave the freaking out of it. You know. But listen, I'm very happy to invite you here. You're in a beautiful place in Boca Raton, and I hope you're enjoying the ocean background. Are you?
I sure am. It looks quite relaxing. That's what I was telling him. I'm here in South Carolina, and we do have a coast, but it doesn't look quite as appealing as that one that you got behind you.
Well, we are sitting on top of the world here, but you know, we got to stop this climate change because the ocean's getting too close for comfort.
Yeah, I bet.
And that's one of the things we're all on the lookout for. You know, we had some serious issues in Florida. We had a whole condominium collapse here.
I remember seeing that. What, about a year or two ago?
Killed about 98 people, and you know, so. My condo here, I live in this condo, is a high rise. It's a 22-story building. And we are going through this with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, we're looking for every evidence of rust because we're fighting this corrosion. You know, we're right next to the ocean, and that salt water comes at us. You know, we got to watch ourselves. So it's become very challenging now to live in these buildings by the ocean. But we're in a constant battle, and we're up for it because we love where we live and we want to preserve it. So it takes a lot of doing to keep the steel from rusting.
William Steele doesn't want to rust.
Well, I'm in the steel business, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm a welder and a fabricator, and that's what we do. We supply steel for buildings and things like that. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right. Well, listen, I wrote this book about writing because you know, I own a PR firm, and you know, we get a lot of college interns, and they're great. You know, sending texts and you know, anything that's like about 25, 30 words, they're terrific. Blazing fast with their thumbs on the cell phones and everything, but when it comes to putting out a press release and writing something with some depth to it, it becomes very challenging for young people today. And that's why I wrote this book called Wordshine Man, because you remember when we used to have guys in the railroad station shining shoes?
Absolutely.
Okay, well now I think we need to shine words. We need to teach young people how to make their emails, how to make their subject lines, how to make their first paragraphs, how to make their leads engaging. Because if you don't catch somebody's interest in the first 25, 30 words, you're dead.
Oh, you're absolutely right. As a, you know, podcaster myself, self-promoted, you know, when you're putting out an ad for whatever show you're doing, you've got to put something out there to grab them. I mean, you can't start off bland and, you know, like you said, you got to grab them early or they're going to lose interest.
And we're in the PR business, and guess who we're communicating with? We're communicating with journalists. They have no time. They have no time because if we send them an email and if we don't engage them right away, then that poor client we're representing is going to stay in the dark.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to get a story. So that's why we have to make our pitches. We call them pitches that we send to the media, and we better make them arresting and intriguing and get their attention right away. So that's what I'm teaching in this book, Word Shine Man.
There you go. Also, it should be interesting about Tom. He's got phenomenal clients, a whole bunch of celebrities, even represented Nancy Grace in the true crime genre recently. Within the last 2 years, I think you were representing her, and picked me up and just really became my best friend. I think I could say Tom and Gary are my best friends right now.
Wow.
People from my past turned their back on me, or I let some of them go, and family stole from me. But these people came into my life when I was at my lowest and gave me all the encouragement to tell my stories and teach me things that, you know, I kind of have a hard head, but my heart is really into help people. And one of the fascinating clients he actually has now wrote this book. This is attorney Peter Tickton. You ever hear of him?
Oh, yeah. What makes Trump tick?
Well, Peter went to military academy with Donald Trump. Peter, he when I was in prison and people were dying from COVID all around me, and I thought I was going to die right before my release date. He got me an attorney. Peter steps in and starts trying to help me. Now, we couldn't get any relief for various reasons because, you know, we were dealing with certain people that didn't want to do anything within the prosecutor's office and the governor's office. But he tried. And to this day, remains my friend, my mentor. And so he represents Peter Tickton. And I'll let you tell him more about Peter if you want to hear anything.
Well, Peter, you know, he's a brilliant attorney. And, you know, he's argued cases before the Supreme Court. And I mean, he's an amazing personality. And, you know, and I don't know what you feel about Donald Trump, but he met Trump when he was going to military academy in New York when they were both 18 years old. So he spent his youth with Donald Trump together. And they know each other in a very different way because they saw each other growing and prospering and developing. And they've maintained a friendship over life. And I respect that. I like people who are loyal to their friends. And he's very loyal to you know, to Trump. And they hang out together, and he goes to Mar-a-Lago and meets with him and so forth. And right now he's his personal attorney. Can you imagine that relationship has blossomed into this personal attorney relationship with probably the most talked about guy in the world?
I was about to say he probably stays pretty daggone busy with everything that Trump's got going on.
Oh my God! Oh my God! He is on top of the world, and he's so busy and so forth. But he's got the capacity, and I'm so happy to have him as a client. I've had him for many years now, and he's such an interesting client because he's got great cases. He wins a lot of cases, and I get the publicity, you know, for the wins, and I make sure everybody knows about it. And that's my job.
You said you've heard of Peter Tickton, right?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I've interviewed another guy that was a lawyer for a long time, and then he actually ran for mayor of Las Vegas. I think I mentioned him to you when we was on the phone.
Oscar Goodman.
Oscar Goodman. He's been a guest on the show, and he was quite a character. And we talked about some of the people he represented in the organized crime world down there in Las Vegas. And then, like I said, he later on went and ran for mayor and won it 3 terms in a row, which is the max you could do. And now his wife's the mayor down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, I congratulate you. I think you have a wonderful personality, and I salute you on the caliber of guests you have on, including my friend here, who's a fascinating guy.
Absolutely.
We need to stop locking people up and throwing the damn key away. It's not going to solve anything. We have wonderful people who are in prisons today who don't belong in prisons that long. They've changed their lives. They've changed their thinking. So they need to be released.
Well,
so
I probably don't belong there at all because it's lack of money for a lawyer and other things. And then you get tunnel vision by prosecutors and solicitors, and
that's right.
They don't care. They would rather jack up some high charge on somebody, even though they know it's not warranted, hoping they'll cop down to a lesser plea and go in jail. That way they get the win on the books, and the other person goes to jail.
Yeah. And look at a guy like Bill here. Bill is such an amazing turnabout in terms of the life that he was leading. He changed his whole life around, and now he's really contributing so much in a positive way. Absolutely. And I hope to present him as an example that we can't just put people in behind bars and throw the key away because they have so much that they can contribute, as Bill is doing right now with his books, with his TV shows, with his television shows that's coming out. I mean, it's an amazing, uplifting story, and I want more people to know about it so that we don't just throw the key away. Okay, guys?
All right. Thank you, Tom.
It was great meeting you, Tom.
All right. Now, we're keeping this in chronological order. So incredibly, 3 months before my release, COVID is going wild through the prisons. It's killing people all around me. I'm hiding out in my cell. I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to be masked up. I got a cellmate who wants to get high and drink all the time. He's bringing these germs in the cell, and I'm freaking out trying to get out of there. Tom hears from a lady in California who needs help representing her client because she, like me, represents and advocates for the wrongfully incarcerated now is what another thing that I do. And so she wanted representation for her client, David Michael Reinhardt. He's incarcerated in California. And so Tom was talking to her about that case and said, well, I have a friend / client who's also incarcerated, Bill, and you guys want to communicate. He's an author and maybe can help you tell your story. And so she got in touch with me and we reached out to each other and we fell in love, and now we're engaged to be married. So here comes the beautiful Dr. Mary Bass.
Wow, what a story, man.
Yes, Mary Bass, this is the love of my life. So she's a forensic accountant. She's a certified fraud examiner, so many titles, and she's so brilliant. She got into UC Berkeley at 15 years old.
15.
And somehow she fell in love with me. I don't know how.
Man, you've had a story, and we ain't even started talking about your story. I mean, this is amazing here, what you got going. Mary, I got to ask, how does this happen, with him in prison? Was it just the letters? You could tell by what he was writing? How did this happen between you two?
Well, first, I was in touch with Tom Madden, and he did suggest that I get in touch with William.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, William's book, Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst, arrived at my house. And it went missing briefly because my mom squired it away. She's a very fast reader. So she read it. I thought I misplaced it for a second. I didn't know. But then a few hours later, she taps on the door. Yes, she peeks at me and she holds up the book. She says, Mary, I know you're really going to get along well with this guy.
Mom knows best.
And she was right. And I read his book, and then I had written a letter explaining, I'm very grateful that he wrote that book, because if William can stand up for victims of people that are very dangerous and also very wealthy and very powerful, it's very inspirational to someone like me who, with much less important people, but definitely some stories to tell on behalf of the victims. I've been threatened and intimidated not to publish my own books since 2012. So it inspires a lot of bravery and courage, and that was what I tried to convey to William in my first letter to him. I thanked him profusely for standing up for the victims and for his bravery, because these aren't easy things to write. They're true crime, but they're still involving tragedies.
Right.
And it takes a lot of courage. And
You're absolutely right. That's not the first time I've heard that, because I've interviewed a number of authors on this show, and depending on the subject matter and the genre, they've said they've been outright threatened, physical injury if they release certain books on certain people or include certain things. And so that's definitely a true tale, because you're not the first person to say that. So absolutely kudos to him for doing that. I mean, somebody's got to stand up, for the little guy, or for the guy that can't stand up for himself. And again, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that you're doing this coming out of 18-year sentence speaks volumes, because like I said, that can tear people down. And it's obviously you've come out and you've not been torn down. You're climbing up.
I stayed busy. I do have a strong faith in God, and I stayed busy working at, positive things, the law library, for the chaplain's office. I took advantage of all the ministries that came in. I fought for years to get college courses in, and they finally got approved. And so I just did everything positive. I walked away from anybody negative. I'd help anybody unless they try to drag me down a negative road. I'm like, look, I've been there, done that. I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm not trying to stay here a second longer. It wasn't my first time, and I'm never trying to go back. So I'm just trying to help people now. And now we do the crime victim advocacy, work with victims of domestic violence. We also working with some victims whose family members were murdered, trying to bring light onto cold case homicides and exposing all kinds of frauds. Now, before I ever met her, because of her work in crime victim advocacy, she was actually literally kidnapped in Denmark when she went there to help somebody. And in another case, she was attempted kidnapped in California for exposing a racketeering scam with involving probate and stockbroker. So she's really been through the ringer too. So I know she's a stand-up person, and we're like the perfect fit.
Yeah, yin and yang for sure. There, you guys meant to be for sure. Well, first off, before we even get into your story, congratulations to the two of you.
Thank you. I can't leave out Liz Coppola.
Absolutely.
Liz Coppola is a new addition to this family. She came in loaded for bear, I guess would be the expression, but she's the godmother agent, and she's they call her Mother Courage. She's got a reality show coming out in Vegas, and she is my agent publicist for really booking podcasts for me. Right. And if I'm not mistaken, she's the one that hooked us up.
Yes, she did broker this meeting. Again, shout out to Liz Coppola for doing that. The Godmother Agency, folks, if you're looking for somebody to get you in the right spot, in the right limelight to be heard, to get your story heard, hit her up. You can find her on Crime and Entertainment social media. I'm sure, linked in with some of your stuff. So, again, kudos to Liz and all her hard work.
Yep. So there we go with the how I got to this stage.
Yeah. So now the story begins. Well, like any good story, my friend, we need to kind of start from the beginning. So let's get a little bit of background on you, where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and then we'll kind of work our way in, to you getting led into the life of, becoming a jewel and art thief. And then we'll roll into Robert Durst and Ghislaine Maxwell. And, 4 or 5 hours from now, we'll conclude this thing.
Well, first of all, I know we said we're going to be doing this in 3 parts. So thank you. It is a lot to take in, and me coming out of prison, I'd like to really do as many interviews as possible.
Absolutely.
For safety, especially, and to try to build my own social as well. But so here's how it begins. So I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and from a middle-class family. And my mother was mentally ill. She was very, very severely mentally ill. And as a result, she was bullied and picked on around the neighborhood and all that. And so I would come to her defense and have a lot of run-ins with the neighborhood kids when I was a kid. And so this thing about, defending people from bullies and, stuff like that was always in me. I always wanted to be this James Bond type guy, Mission Impossible. I wanted to be the guy who could do anything, get in and out of anything, all for the greater good, helping people. And so it kind of got perverted years later when I was in real estate, and then I took locksmithing and alarm courses, and I took safe and vault courses. And I learned how to get in and out of anything. The problem is shortly thereafter, a friend died, I got depressed, tried some coke, I got hooked on coke really bad. And so that addiction lasted many, many years. Throughout that period, in like the cocaine heydays in the 80s and 90s, I was trafficking kilos of cocaine from South Florida to New York. I was moving guns of every type from South Florida, mostly to New York, and just doing whatever I could. Then I started to do burglaries, like multi-million-dollar homes on the ocean, the intercoastal waterway, gated communities, but everywhere from South Florida to New York to Las Vegas to California. And I would pose as a certain fashion designer's brother in many instances. And I would say that she was she was looking for a house, $3 to $6 million on the water. And a lot of times realtors would bring me in the houses and I would case them that way and go back. And so I made millions of dollars stealing jewelry and artwork. But I was always looking over my shoulder. I was never happy with it. I was comfortable, and I was able to, do a lot of traveling and had a lot of property. But, like anything else, everything falls apart. You can only do things for a certain amount of time, especially when I was using coke just about every day. I wasn't really in my right mind. So I ended up incarcerated, and this last stretch was over 18 years, nonviolent charge. And in that instance, I was already at my wit's end with when I met the mess I've made of my life. And so I immersed myself in helping other people, working in the law library, working for the chaplain, working in the medical department. And because I had some college background, I was able to help guys understand navigating the system, grievance procedures, try to negotiate things with staff rather than have de-escalating situations, basically.
Mhm.
And looks like we broke up a little bit.
Nah, I got you good on man.
You got me? Okay. So yeah, I was helping them, write their grievances and articulate their complaints a little better than perhaps they could. So throughout that period, I was always fighting for college courses in the prison systems and, 3 different states. And I was never fortunate to be able to participate in it. Finally, they brought some in. Washington and Lee University came in. And so they came in, and then I took another community college course, which actually Tom Madden sponsored me to do. So I took these college courses, started writing my stories. And that's how I came out to say, you know what, I'd rather go back to the guy I was before all this began and start helping people. Well,
Right.
and so that's where we are now. We talked about a lot of that. I'm writing books. I have a TV show on A&E Network. It airs August 18th, and you guys have the trailer. And it's really about recidivism and holding down recidivism rates, and that lack of adequate housing upon release, aside from drug and substance and alcoholism, is the highest cost of recidivism in the United States. And so they're trying to find ways to hold recidivism down by sponsoring people, but for a place to live. Well, because I had a falling out with my family over an inheritance, and I couldn't see my mother. She was mentally ill before she died. There was a big falling out. I decided not to go to New York, and I stayed in another state. So this television program shows what it's like. I was living with a woman who was, at the time, she was a pen pal for many years. And her and her husband agreed to let me live with them in Indiana. And I'd never been there before in my life. I'm a New York City guy, South Florida. That's where I hang out. That's where I did everything, legal and illegal. And so New York and Florida is my home, not Indiana. I got there, and it was just I had the TV show, when it's called Inmate to Roommate. And it's about how people finds a place to live when they're getting released, when they're not going home to family, and how that situation turns out. Sort of like a Love After Lockup or one of those shows. In fact, the same producers make it. So it's a lot of drama. I can't give away much. I can't tell you really what's going on. Other than that, it leans towards recidivism, and it leans towards what's it like for somebody getting out of prison, living with somebody who's not a family, and all the baggage they bring to the picture on both sides.
Wow.
And I can't say much because
Right,
I
got you.
give it away.
Well, it sounds interesting, and that's a hell of a turn from, like you said, New York, Brooklyn, Florida to Indiana. That's got to be a major shift, just that in and of itself.
Yeah, I get over there, I was used to. I didn't expect it when I got out, because I got out basically broke. I didn't expect to go back to high fashion and all the things I was accustomed to, nice car, this, that, and the other thing. You get there and everybody's like really good people, hard working, blue collar. Mm-hmm. It's the RV capital of the world, Elkhart, Indiana, and mostly good people. But unfortunately, and this plays into my whole story right now, the first guy I meet there, while I'm filming my TV show, he's sitting in the car by a river, chain smoking a cigarette. Beautiful, I think it was a Viper. He pulled past me, and he's, like I'm doing, he's got a lot of jewelry on at the time. And I said, "Hey, nice car, man." And he pulled back and he said, "What'd you say to me?" He looked like a biker type with the big, And I said, "You have a nice car. Do you find a problem with me complimenting your car?" He says, "Oh, no, I got a warehouse full of them, and I got 200 Harleys and, 300 Indians." And he does. He has all these vehicles and cars and mansion on the river and all this property. Well, turns out he's posed as the only billionaire in Elkhart, and he's the godfather of Elkhart, right? So he sets out, finding out I have a show and that I just got out of prison. He offers to be a benefactor of sorts. "I'll help you get on your feet. This mansion over here, 300,000. You just give me," I think he wanted 100,000 cash initially, "and $500 a month, and you can have it." And he said, "I'm going to kill myself anyway because the FBI is about to arrest me. So when that happens, it's yours." And I'm like, "Look, I've been around a little bit. I can smell bullshit when I hear it."
Yeah.
And then Mary had leukemia, so she's in remission now. But at the time, he tried to sell us a fake cure for her leukemia. And so Mary, being the fraud examiner, the forensic accountant, and the investigator that she is, civilian investigator, I said, Mary, look, this guy's stories don't smell right. Look him up. And it's Charles Ray Smith. You guys can Google it in Elkhart, Indiana, Charles Ray Smith. And it turns out, has been litigated successfully for doing the exact same thing to people.
Wow.
Now, here we are, crime victim advocates. I'm out of prison. I have a show. I write books about it. He knows this and still try to rip us off.
Jesus.
And I warned him. I said, I'm the last guy you want to try this crap with. And he tried it anyway. So he got a doctor. He gets many people. The doctor, Leslie Marlin Scholl. And what he'll do is, when he ripped the guy off for like property, Dr. Scholl, when he sold him some property that he didn't own. And so then he had a $300,000 gun collection. So he talked him out of that while the doctor was going through a divorce. But the problem was the doctor had legal machine guns and silencers and other things. So he turns those over to ATF and then keeps the $300,000 in guns and sells them for $45,000. So ATF comes in. You didn't do your proper paperwork for all these transfers of these automatic weapons or whatever. And so they arrest the poor doctor, put him in prison for 13 years. But first, the guy said he was going to try to kill his wife and his divorce lawyer, which they threw those cases out. So what he'll do is he'll rip somebody off, and then he'll find a way to get them locked up so you can't tell on them or go kill them or whatever people are planning to do to this guy.
Holy cow.
And he's done this. We're hearing stories about him giving them laptops, and then 3-4 days later, the police kick in the door and it's loaded with child porn, just to try to get rid of. Oh, he's horrible. He's a horrible human being, man. He posed as a friend to me and many other people. He's just a horrible human being. I introduced him to people I know, and he just tries to rip everybody off. It's just, yeah. So that's one thing that's happened since my release. Anyway, the FBI finally locked him up in October. He's now facing 120 years in prison, and turns out he's suspected possibly of being allegedly of being the most prolific serial killer in the Midwest. So we'll see if this pans out. But I know he admitted to me that he killed his girlfriend, Trina McCreary, because she got so sick of his abuse and beatings that she turned over a cell phone to the FBI that helped make the case against him back last August. So he's bragged about killing hers and why and how and all this stuff. But the judge has him on an ankle monitor at his house right now in his mansion.
I got to tell you, my friend, it sounds like you got your third book lined up there.
Yeah. So while the rest of us are struggling to pay bills or find a place to live, he's living in a mansion on the river looking for his next victim, and then telling the judge he wants to go to his business to work. I wrote the judge, I said, the man's never worked a day in his life. Tell him to prove to you where he's ever worked. Right. You know, he's full of crap. He goes around the country ripping people off. So anyway, he tried me coming straight out of prison. Everybody he's ripped off was a good person, a doctor, a blue collar person, hardworking. People in Indiana are beautiful people. They're very sweet, middle America people. And he played on that. He had the flash, you know, and they weren't ready for it. And they invested with him in various things, and he ripped every one of them off.
Wow. Well, let me ask you a question. I want to go back. You were working for a safe company. So that's kind of interesting, because I know someone that did that. They worked for a locksmith company, and they would have to get into safes or cars or whatever. And the guy, I guess similar to your story a little bit, he developed a drug habit, and he would break into businesses and steal the safes right out from the business because he knew how to crack them later on. He wouldn't break in and do it there. Right. He would just steal the whole damn safe and then crack it, I guess, back at his house or whatever. But that's, I mean, it's almost like, depending on how you use that, that's almost a training for that sort of thing.
It definitely is. And when I went bad, I was working for a very prominent locksmith in New York City, and he had different places. And I was starting to use coke already. And I said, well, you know, I'll put these skills to good use. And so I would install locks. And even like in the days when the original World Trade Center was there, I did all the master keying for Dean Winter Reynolds. I think it was 3 stories of one of the towers. And so I would save either the master codes or a key itself, and I tape it to an index card, you know, write my code, what it was for. And then I would go back months later and just hit all these places that I installed in. Yeah. But also, yes, I've used my skills to break into safes in businesses, in houses, or take them with me and do it somewhere else. You know, I'm not proud of it, but I was good at doing it. And I never took any partners because, you know, you don't have anybody to screw up, tell on you, tell their girlfriend. And the next thing you know, you go into prison.
Right.
But
That's what I was going to ask. You don't, with that kind of setup that you had and you basically knowing how to do everything on your own, you don't really need anybody with you.
no, sometimes for some heavy work, because I'm not the strongest guy,
Right.
you know, I don't even remember a time except for maybe when I was 20 when I had a partner or something, and he ended up telling on me. So I don't I don't need partners. You know, back in those days, I did everything by myself.
Uh, so, so you turn from working with a locksmith to breaking in. You're committing crimes. You're like you said. You've got a good living. You're making a good living, albeit illegal. But at the same time, you're not comfortable. You're looking over your shoulder. At what point do you meet Robert Durst? How does this come into play?
Robert Durst, my God, the wealthiest serial killer in American history per me. Anyway, so Robert Durst, I was in Manhattan with a friend of mine by the locksmith school, a friend of mine, Sammy. And we literally were hustling somewhere. He was with Susan Berman, the woman he killed in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And we literally ran into each other on 42nd Street, right by the locksmith school. I got soda all over me. You know, I was like, you know, what the F? And he was calling me every name in the book rather than just like stunned or apologetic. And Susan Berman talked him down. And I had a gun, he had a gun. And we both were getting ready to pull out. And this is busy Midtown Manhattan, you know, during the middle of a lunch hour. And so it would have been pretty bad. And my friend was a good guy, and I wasn't really trying to shoot anybody, you know, but, you know, he got so aggressive and he had a gun with him. And so that's how we met. And then so Susan drug him inside a fast food place right there and was talking him down, calming him down, and then said, look, my friend, you know, he's very wealthy. His wife was just murdered. He's on edge. I apologize. He'll get you another soda. And then when she said that he's very wealthy, you know, his wife was just murdered. And I'm like, okay. When she said that, if looks could kill, he killed Susan Berman then. And this is in the early 80s because she took that back immediately, like it was a Freudian slip. She says, I didn't mean that. I meant she's been missing. So, yeah. So Susan Berman was defending him even then. And so Robert Durst, that's how I met him. And then eventually he had asked me then and there, once he found out what I was in the area for. I think the Durst organization had some property there. He was collecting rental or something at the time. But I was there because the locksmith school was there. And he said, oh, a locksmith. He said, you're willing to do some side work, you know, maybe if it crosses the line once in a while. I said, yeah, anything's okay if the price is right. I was already dealing a little bit of coke and stuff I wasn't using, but I was sure anything's right, you know, for the price. And if the price is right. And so that's how it went. You know, he wanted me to do a few things. And anyway, a lot of that's discussed in the book. And so he ultimately went on trial. I can't even focus the darn thing.
There you go.
So he ultimately went on trial in Los Angeles for killing Susan Berman. He at one point approached me to help have her killed. And I had some incriminating evidence against him because he would bring women over to my house and wanted to like abuse them and hurt them. And I ran him out. I said, you're not going to do that here. He was paying me for the use of my house in Brooklyn because though he has money, he knows everybody in Manhattan. And he didn't want his family to know he was using drugs and whoring around with all these call girls or whatever they were. And so I'm trying to, you know, hide him out in my upstairs apartment from my parents, my girlfriend, or the downstairs. And so I'm trying to put out fires upstairs and going downstairs. And he's, you know, on the couch with 3 naked women and trying to invite me to the couch. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not gay. I'm not bi. I'm not curious. If you ever do that again, it's going to be a problem. So, you know, he did it again. I ended up strangling him. So there's a whole bunch of these little stories about me dealing with him over the years for like 20 years on and off. And then he wanted to kill me in the end because he knew I had a bunch of information on him. And, you know, he never had the chance, thank God.
So you told an interesting story on another show that I was listening to in prep for this interview about the cherry tattoo situation. That one kind of struck me and struck a chord, and I think our audience would feel the same way here. Share that story real quick if you don't mind, since we're talking about Durst and all the shit that he was.
That was one of the, he used to use my Brooklyn place. There was 2-family house my parents owned, and he would pay me money for use of the basement and later for the top apartment. It was bringing various women over there and trying to invite me to this and that. And I wasn't really feeling it. And plus my girlfriend was there, and I just, you know, it was basically for him, escorts and all that. And then he had, you know, convinced me that he was killing these women and abusing them in different ways. And so this one that he had the cherry tattoos in a private place. And later on, I saw pictures that he brought over for safekeeping with me, you know, to impress me. And I told him I would hold them for safekeeping, but I was going to keep the photos and just turn the photos in, because these were pictures of dead women. And one of them was that same girl. It's like I say, the story is really broken down in the book. So if your readers want the details, Section of Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst. And I don't like going into detail, you know, it's a lot more graphic. You'd have to read the book to see what I'm talking about.
I can imagine. Yeah, because when I heard that, you that one kind of struck me with him saying that the cherries were the best part there. That one really kind of
right. He made a comment that, you know, I don't know if he was trying to shock me, if he was being sincere, but about cannibalism and eating, you know, some of these women. And I said, you mean? He said, no, not that way. Literally, you know, the cherries are the best part. And so he's a really disgusting person, and he's just a horrible human being. And anyway, he got convicted finally for killing Susan Berman.
Right. Now, were you kind of, and we don't have to discuss a lot in the detail on that, but you were trying to assist in that to get him, you know, put away, right? Because you had a little bit of evidence on that.
Right. I had made some recordings over the years, and I guess because I was incarcerated, they never made a move to get the recordings. I've had agencies, people that know me really well, as far as attorneys and law enforcement, contact them. And basically the message we got back was, we really have enough. We're gonna get him in Los Angeles for Susan Berman. That was the message we got back. That's the message we got back. I believe it was Peter Tickton, one of my attorneys, and some other people. They said this, they're saying the same thing, because there was other people that had come forward with bits and pieces of his life that made the whole puzzle. But I think what really hung him was his admission statements while he had a hot mic during the filming of the HBO Jinx, where he said, I killed them all. Now there's some questions about whether they edited it out of context. The producers, I don't know the whole backstory to that, but I do know that that's him, and then what he did and how he approached me and possibly others before it happened, with the woman he was with at the time, who I'm not going to name because I don't want to be, you know, sued into oblivion, to have her killed. And
you actually change her name in the book, right?
Right. I refer to her as Delilah. But so there was all that going on. And then there's a letter that he wrote to the police that he admitted to me that he wrote, because he left her there and he didn't want the body to decompose, because he considered her a friend, even though he killed her. And he denied writing that letter for the last 20 something years, but I put it in my book 3-4 years ago. Well, on the stand at his trial a few months ago, he finally admitted through counsel, yes, I wrote the book that she was there, but because I was visiting her on a staycation, and I came across the body and I knew Janine Pirro wanted me, so I flipped out and I called 911, but then I hung up on 911 and I wrote that letter. Well, that's not what happened, but yes, he did write the letter, and I've been saying it for years because he had told me he wrote the letter. So that came actually accurate from exactly what I said he did and what he admitted to. It was crazy because if you follow the trial of Robert Durst, it was so long. He spent like $6 million on lawyers. And one of the times the prosecutor caught him in another lie, like probably, 120 lies, I think it was.
Right.
One of them was, so where did you get the term staycation from? And he said, well, Susan said, I want you to come over for staycation, Bobby, because we haven't seen each other in so long. Come out to California. And then so the prosecution team did the research, and he said, Mr. Durst, so she used the term staycation in the year 2000, asking you to come out to LA. Turns out the term staycation didn't even come into existence until, I think it was like almost 10 years later.
Wow.
So they caught him in lie after lie on the stand. You know, his ploy was, let me admit I was there, saw her, panicked and left, but I didn't kill her, of course.
Right.
But anyway, they convicted him anyway.
And now you and her, not when I say relationship, I don't mean an actual relationship, but you and her were fairly close, right?
I met her through Robert Durst after the first day.
Right.
And I knew she was afraid of him, and she told me so, and she begged me not to even let him know that we were talking.
Wow.
She said, look, he's very dangerous. I outlined some of that in my book about some of the things she said to me about, I tried to comfort her, and sometimes I get in trouble for doing that. You know, my fiance Mary tells me now, because of these acquaintances that I made over the years, that we're going to have a family vote on any new friends I make.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
No more serial killers.
So far we've got we've got your jewel thief background. Then you meet one of the most craziest, bizarre serial killers ever in Robert Durst. And we're not even done, folks. Ghislaine Maxwell, how does this come about? Tell me how this comes into play.
I actually met Jeffrey Epstein first. I was actively doing burglaries in South Florida and New York and Vegas, flying back and forth. And one of my fences was actually on Worth Avenue. It's one of the most, it's like the Rodeo Drive. It's the most expensive street, in this part of the country. And it's all shops, luxury stores, diamond dealers, and designer shops. And so one of my fences was a diamond dealer there. He had an upstairs diamond salon. I'm not going to say his name. The man passed away, but his son still runs it. Anyway, so I went there to see him, and I had on me. I was wanted by the cops. I used to always carry guns. At that time, I had a pistol with a silencer on it, and it's for show. I wasn't hurting anybody, but because I operate alone, if I open my briefcase and I have a gun right there, you're going to think twice about trying to screw me over. So I don't care if you were a cocaine trafficker or a jeweler, you were going to see the same display, and then, it would make you think. Well, because I used to carry myself like that and display like that, people over the years have asked me to, kill somebody. And I'm thinking, I'm laughing because I'm not going to kill anybody, but I would, go through the motions, maybe take the deposit and never see them again. So I was at the salon, and a guy there who I now know to be Jeffrey Epstein was standing at the counter with his hands kind of down the shorts of a young lady. Looks like she was about 13, and she looked just like Jodie Foster. She could have been like from Taxi Driver, the 13-year-old Jodie Foster,
Right.
doppelganger. And I just went livid. I had the gun. I have a daughter. I was just livid. And so I told my friend, hey, I'll be back later. And I saw him leave. He walked up the street to a place called Taboo. And I went and followed him in there. And I ended up sitting in there and insisting he speak to me. And I called him out on that. And that story of how that went down is right in this book that I just put out. This is called Ghislane, Sensational, Impure, by William Steele. Ghislane, Sensational and Impure. And it details how that meeting went down. And he was so scared. He was from Brooklyn. I picked up on his Brooklyn accent. So we're from the same part of New York City. And, I told him I don't go for that, blah, blah, blah. And he was pretty arrogant at first until I pulled the gun out and said, look, I'm serious. Who was she to you and how old is she? He said, that's my niece. She's 18. I said, niece or not, you're not supposed to be touching this girl out in public, and she looks like a kid.
Saying a niece, that makes it worse.
So I told him, I said, sit right here. Don't effing move. And I went over to the table and spoke to her. And I said, look, who is he to you? And how do you explain what I just saw? So no, I guess they prepared. She knew I was coming. Probably noticed me following him. And she said essentially the same thing. So I went back to him. I said, listen, my friend owns that place. I don't care how much money you have, who you are. There's videos of what you did in that store. So, and he was just like, begging me not to, go back or anything. Now I shouldn't have said that because he could have went back and got, gave the guy 50 or 100 grand to get all the videos from that day, just saying he wants them. Right. But that's how I met him. So when he asked me what I was doing over there, I told him that I was a jewelry salesman. I get, deals on jewelry. Oh, I buy a lot of jewelry. I live right here in Palm Beach. I'm, very comfortable, and I'm always buying jewelry. If you want to do some business. So he kind of baited my greed. I took his his number, actually, not his card, and we exchanged information. And I looked him up a few times. He went through the motions of buying things. He wasn't really interested in them. I think he was trying to feel me out to see if I had turned him in or, any way, shape, or form. Right. But I was wanted by the police. What I wanted to do was take him out back and beat him to death with a baseball bat. But I was wanted. I had an illegal gun on me. I had stolen jewelry on me. And so he started buying stuff off me. But when I went to the house a few times, I would see traffic, but there was always masseuses. It was always models. It was, the Palm Beach house. It's actually just about a half a mile, probably a mile from here, I guess. But mosquitoes are out here or something. So while going back and forth to that house, I eventually met Ghislaine Maxwell, and we became real friendly. I meet everybody. I'm friendly with everybody, and I'm trying to tone that down a little bit because it always ends, not always, but it ends bad a lot of times because I take my face value until they screw me over. And then, I always tell people, how people say, you keep messing with me, there's a bullet with your name on it, something like that. It's like an expression. So keep writing these books. I'm going to tell people, I'm going to have an image of a book on my book. And it's going to say, if you cross me in any way, shape or form, there's a book with your name on it.
Well, that's almost worse than a bullet nowadays. Cause I tell you what, bad press can follow you forever. You know, it can haunt you.
Oh yeah.
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 So all right. So that's your relationship with Epstein. You didn't have any idea about the shit he was into at this time.
I had absolutely no clue. And there is a point when I became aware because there was a security guy in him, and I was kind of made to see some videos. And once again, not trying to be too pitchy here, but it is explained in the book, the videos I saw, and some of the very famous people that were in the videos. And I just took my life in my hands by basically writing that. But yeah, I became aware of it at one point because they kept offering me, things with these women, and I felt it was kind of creepy, and they looked kind of young, and I was like, no, I figured they were hookers. I've never been into hookers. And so I just kept excusing myself. And eventually he just, I guess, got back at me for pulling the gun on him in the Taboo on Worth Avenue. And now he had his guy have me at gunpoint, and we had some words. And so, yeah, I don't want to say too much more in this particular interview because there's still some stuff coming out of this currently.
Right. Well, and I've heard some of the people's name mentioned on that tape. You don't want to drop any of them's name?
Oh, tell you what, we saved the names for the next interview because we're going to be doing it in a few weeks.
Okay. But, that's got to be something that I know the people are going to want to hear, especially. And I know everybody, when you're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, your first, thought is, all right, well, what guy is it this time? But it's a little bit of a flip, the name you throw out. And it really caught. I wasn't even that shocked, but I was surprised, if that makes any sense, given the whole history.
You're not talking about President Biden because I didn't name him.
No. It was a former president's wife.
I can't hear what you're saying. I got something in my eye.
Yeah. If it went around a little longer, Hunter had to be somewhere on them tapes. I'm sure. If
tell you what, they gotta read this one here, and you see this beautiful book right here. Mm-hmm. This is from Peter Tichter. Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're gonna start putting these pieces together.
Yeah,
because I can see you're very bright, and you're gonna start connecting the dots.
Oh yeah,
and you gotta get Peter's book too.
So where did Ghislaine fit in here, though? And am I saying her name right? Is it Ghislaine? I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways.
I'm from Brooklyn. I couldn't figure out how to pronounce it either. I think it's French or something. Okay. I used to just call her G. And a matter of fact, this book was going to be called The G Spot, and I felt that's in the book. Because I would call her G. I would like butcher her name, and I didn't really care. So oh boy. Okay. Maybe that's part two, right?
Yeah, that's definitely part two. Now, so how did this meeting, how did this occur between you and her? I don't want to give out, like I said, too much, but how did this meet occur? How did you meet her?
Jeffrey introduced me to her at the Palm Beach house. In fact, I'm supposed to be going there to film an interview tomorrow in front of the house.
Really? Okay.
We'll see if I don't get run off the street when I get over there. Because don't forget, I've been locked up 18 years. I got released to Indiana because of family issues. And I've been filming a TV show and writing books and other books for the last 14 months. And yesterday was the first time I'm back in Florida since that period.
Wow.
And his house is just a few miles from Boca. And that's where I intend to go, right in front of that house tomorrow, and do my own stuff. And then another lady wants me on her show. And she said, would you mind filming in front of the house? And I don't care. I'm going there anyway. We'll do it.
Wow.
Unless the police run up. I don't have journalism credentials, so if the cops pull up, they'll probably just run me off.
Right. Now, you and her y'all were in a romantic relationship for a period of time, right?
Brief time. I wouldn't call it romantic. I would call it a relationship of mutual usury.
Hey, we can coin that one, man, because I think that probably puts a lot of people's relationship.
Well, Bettina Gilowa was an A-list screenwriter. She actually coined it when she was talking about my relationship with Robert Durst, and I loved it. She said, you guys were in a relationship, a mutual usury. She's won like, Emmy Awards and all kinds of stuff for screenwriting. She's brilliant. Unfortunately, she passed away from cancer a few years ago, but she coined that. She said, a relationship of mutual usury. I said, yeah, that's it.
So to ask a little bit, to not focus too much up on the tapes, because people have heard, rumors about the tapes, who's on the tapes, the age of people on the tapes, things like that. But stuff I was wondering is just how crazy did it get, and was, I'm just going to say, Ghislaine involved in any of those tapes, like as part of the action, I guess you would call it?
Was who?
Was herself, was Miss Maxwell on there, Ghislaine Maxwell, was she on some of the tapes? She
was on a few things. They were making the tapes, so she's it's hard. Listen, I was with her and an adult assistant. I wasn't with any of the minors.
Right.
But
Yeah. But I meant
clearly,
like as far as if you ever, the ones that they were showing, was she ever involved in it, or was she more of just a broker and getting people together?
She was definitely very much involved.
Wow. I mean, how was y'all's? I mean, was she into like weird shit? What was y'all's relationship like, or did she want to bring in other people, or was it just normal?
You remember my fiance sitting over here, right?
I thought they went in the house.
You have to read the book.
Right.
It was difficult to write. I was writing it before I got engaged, and she says, "Go ahead and just tell the story. It is what it is." My fiance is really cool. I'm just teasing her right now. So,
yeah, I mean that's all part of the deal, man. Everybody's got lives before we meet others, and there's a story there. You just happen to do it with a very, very famous person that's made a lot of headlines here in the last couple of years.
Right. I tend to meet people who later become infamous. So,
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe now you can start going in the other direction, and we can get some positive relationships coming in here.
That's what I'm doing. That's why I introduced my support system and my mentors here,
Right.
Because my heart is in a whole different place. And when I'm with these people, it's so creeped out, but you're using Coke. I was using a lot of Coke in those days. I really wasn't thinking right. And had I really not thought right, I probably, what if I indulged in, the shit they were into, where would I be today? I'd be doing life or be getting killed somewhere. But thank God I still have my morals about me, even back then.
Well, even then, didn't you say that, or in the book, that Ghislaine back then even knew that Jeffrey was going to lead her to, I think, where she's ended up now. And she was even at one time considering taking him out herself.
Sounds like you read the book.
I got some cliff notes on there.
Okay. Sounds like you did your homework, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
A lot of people tend to interview me having never read the book, which is cool. Everybody's going to go off the cliff notes, not cliff notes, but like off the bio.
Right.
But I could tell by your questions, it seems like you really did read the book.
I read a good bit of, like I said, we just spoke the other day. So I done what I could in a couple of days worth, like I said, I have a day job too. So I done the best I could, to prep. Cause like I said, if I'm doing an interview with somebody, I like to do my due diligence and present them in the best light and give out the best content, because you can tell in an interview if the guy has no idea and if he's fishing for content or fishing for something for it to keep going. And it's just going to cause the viewers to lose interest. Much like your friend earlier was explaining, if you're not grabbing somebody in the first little bit, your viewers are going to switch off to something else.
Right. And I appreciate the tips, because I'm trying to do what you and some of these other guys are doing, bringing these stories out. Again, my true crime channel is official William Steele. Please subscribe. And I really respect what you guys are doing. And every one of you so far that has interviewed me has been phenomenal about giving me tips about how to get it going or what equipment to use. And I mean, don't forget, I went to prison so long ago. There was no such thing as social media.
I was about to say 18 years. There's a lot changes when you come out, buddy.
I have one of these now, and I'm just learning how to use this thing. And social media, I have to learn to market my books on it. And every day I'm just like really immersed in that, trying to figure out, what's a reel, what's a post, what's a this, like what the heck. And then why sometimes if I post too much, does Facebook put a red thing around it? Like I can't post anymore. They block me out for a few days because I'm so persistent with telling people my story and trying to get the word out. So I'm learning to navigate, everything. And I appreciate your input. Absolutely. And everybody's input showing me how to do this.
Yeah, social media is one of those things, man. It can be your best friend, especially, in businesses like what we're into, or endeavors like what we're into, to get your message out there, because it's a huge platform. There's a lot of audiences. YouTube's the same way. which is why we're going to link your YouTube channel and our show notes for people can go check you out and your story and what you got going on over there. But, you know, I don't want it to get lost in this because you've got so many other great stories, you know, being the jewel thief, meeting Robert Durst. I ain't going to say great, but interesting. You know, and then Ghislaine Maxwell herself. But I don't want to gloss over the fact that you did go to jail for 18 years. What did you finally get charged for that sentence?
I've been in prison for, let's see, aggravated fleeing and looting from the police, the high-speed chase that really wasn't, but they exaggerated what happened. Basically, they hit me, broke my leg, beat the hell out of me, broke my ribs before everybody had cameras, and then turned around and charged me with a bunch of crimes. And then there was, you know, burglary charges and the grand theft charges. What else? Oh, and then I decided to escape from prison, and that landed me on America's Most Wanted. So on their website, anyway.
Which prison was that you escaped from?
I'd rather not say on the air. But,
Okay. All right.
I'll send you some information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it like? I mean, because we talked about that, you know, you're getting out, you're seeing all this stuff that wasn't around when you get in. I mean, how do you acclimate yourself to that long in prison?
As we discussed in the lead, I stayed positive. I tried to follow only positive leads and just stay away from the crowds. If there was a crowd over there, I was going over here, laying out in the sun or something. If everybody was going to the gym, I was going to the library, reading books. I was fighting to bring programs into the prison and college courses. We eventually succeeded at that. I took some college courses. I just stayed busy. I worked for the administration on the Offender Representative Committee, which coordinates like mediation between offenders and the administration on different issues, whether it's housing, food, or denial of medical care. I try to get in the middle, help the inmates understand the rules because a lot of them will go ballistic and resort to violence rather than because they don't know how to articulate their complaint properly or cite the proper rule. So I would get involved with a lot of helping people. And so then I lost my mother when I was in prison. She was mentally ill, and I found out some family members took advantage of that situation. They told her I was dead. They didn't tell her that I was incarcerated. Jeez. And then my inheritance disappeared, so I'm trying to rebuild from scratch. Everything I'm doing is to get on my feet and not go backwards. And I met a benefactor who's trying to see what he can do to help. He's James Batmazian. Gary, how do you pronounce his name? Excuse me, James. James Batmazian is a philanthropist here in Boca who helps people that are homeless, mentally ill, coming out of jails and prisons. And he's probably one of the biggest developers in this area in South Florida. Wow. And I attended a meeting with him today, and he's got an organization called Changing Lives. And so I am actively pretty much getting involved starting today. Actually, I was at my first meeting today, and I'm trying to see if I can convince them to bring me on in some capacity to use my skills to help people, especially that are coming out of prison, to get ready for release or line them up with families willing to take them in. So that's what I'd like to do. And he, like I said, he's a gentleman, and he's a philanthropist here in town, and good guy.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate, what you're doing. I mean, you getting your story out there and writing your book is an accomplishment on its own. Well, not one, but 2 books. But aside from that, you've not lost sight in the help that people need and, a lot of times can't get or unable to get coming out of prison that need to get back, reacclimated to society and be able to function. So hats off to you for that work, and, keep at it, keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure that you will be blessed in some way down the line, for doing that, because it's something that I think not a lot of people focus on. And it's been my experience. You do a better job at something like this, having been to prison, having experienced the life that you have to become accustomed to in there, which is, if you've not been there, you just won't get it.
Right.
And you come out with appreciation to how hard it is, as opposed to someone else that might not know. So kudos to you for doing that, and you're doing a great job there.
Thank you. I appreciate that encouragement. Not only that, I want to, remind you and the audience that with my fiance, Dr. Mary Bass, we are really actively doing crime victim advocacy to the point of putting our lives on the line on behalf of other people. Right. And it's kind of the guy I wanted to be all along before I went bad, but that cocaine just screwed up my judgment. And so she and I are working on various cases. For example, Paula Turkovic was murdered in New York. And Mineola, her mother, Kathleen, has no answers because the police seem to be covering up what really happened. Blake Van Delsen was found in the snow 10 miles from his home with a bullet hole through the head. They called it suicide, but he was found with his hands in his pocket. So like he was freezing cold out in the snow barefoot when somebody else obviously killed him. And then there's Trina McCreary, who was allegedly killed by the only billionaire in Elkhart. Charles Ray Smith is the suspect in that crime. And I think that he may be indicted, they're not going to tell you much. But so we're really going out of our way to help people. Brianna Nugent Nix is another case of a murder that was clearly a murder. You guys can look these cases up or go to my True Crime channel on official William Steele. So I'm doing what I can to give back for my poor choices. And that's all I can do. It's actually more rewarding to do that if you go to sleep at night and fall right asleep rather than, making sure your cameras and your police radios turned on, you're listening to the police calls and who's walking in the alley, who pulled up down the block. It's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
But when you're living that life, it's the FBI, it's the police, it's this one, it's that one.
Yeah, like you said, there's no rest. You can't live comfortably. You can't live easy.
I remember coming out of my pool when I was on the run in Las Vegas years ago, and as I'm sitting there at the pool's edge getting ready to jump out, 2 federal agents, I'm not going to say what agency they were from, looked down in the pool and said, "Are you such and such?" and showing me my own picture. And I said, "Yeah, that's me," and I talked my way out of being arrested somehow. And they flew down there to arrest me. And,
Wow.
I quickly moved because they eventually put 2 and 2 together. But I don't like living like that. I was on the run. And then also while you're on the run, you're still on your tail. It's not like you can, especially these days, my God, all kinds of technology, and
Yeah, I was about to say that thing you held up, that makes it a whole lot harder. You probably couldn't get away with it that long these days than you did back in your day because cell phone technology, cameras in every corner, it's almost impossible to do probably a lot of the crimes that you did back in your day. Now it's just about next to impossible.
Well, now I use it to my advantage. I don't like doing it, but out of necessity, I voluntarily track my every movement with 3 cameras and 2 GPS tracking devices. Therefore, if somebody accuses me of something or tries to do me in, everybody knows right where I've been.
Yeah, you got proof that
I have proof because just in the last few months, 2 false accusations that immediately they knew were false. And it was from somebody that we were helping with this murder case and this other financial crimes case. And, so people, they weren't getting anywhere trying to intimidate me.
Right.
They couldn't get me to do anything else. So they tried to falsely accuse me of crimes of things I wasn't even nearby or part of, and I had the proof. So unfortunately, I've had to take all this new high tech and then surveil myself 24/7.
Wow. It's unfortunate you have to do that, but at the same time, like you said, it is for a greater good. And I think the general public is very close-minded and blinded to just how corrupt what they consider the right side of the law, can be. And again, I don't want to put this on every member because there are great members of law enforcement.
That's right.
But all it takes is for you to have an experience with a bad one, and that'll definitely turn your taste a little sour to the whole group. Because like we spoke earlier, an investigator can have tunnel vision on certain things. A prosecutor will go along with it, and they don't want to give up and drop the case because they don't want that loss on the record. They want the conviction. They don't really care about you. They don't really care about the evidence. And I think a lot of people were just, oh, well, he got arrested. He must have been guilty. And that's the way they look at it.
There's a high court decision. I don't remember if it was from the federal court or the Supreme Court. They said that the role of the prosecutor is to seek justice, not simply notch convictions.
Exactly.
And there's so many innocent people in prison. And it's just most of these innocence projects only have the capacity and the funding to help people that are on death row or have life sentences. And those are important cases.
Right.
But you know how many people that just have 20 or just 50 years and nobody will help them, or they don't know how to read or write. And, there's not a lot of me to go around because I was actually helping a ton of these guys. I've had the administration threaten me at a supermax because I escaped from prison. I did 4 years in solitary. We get an hour out a day at the cell for 4 years in 2 different states. They even shipped me to another state to keep me because they said I was an extreme escape risk because of my skills. So in this one instance, I came out during my break with another group of guys from my same area, and they were always coming to me for help with grievances, complaints about medical complaints. And in this case, they always told me at this facility, it was called, it was in Virginia, not Red Onion, Wallens Ridge. So there was an HBO movie made about it called Up the Ridge. So Wallens Ridge was horrible. They were known for being super racist and killing a lot of blacks up there and minorities. And I didn't believe it. I kind of went in there with the attitude like, yeah, you guys always say that, everybody's racist if you don't get your way. I was one of those. But I understand it exists a lot of racism in certain pockets. Well, out there, it was in front of me every day. They were beating the heck out of these guys while they were chained up on a regular basis. And wow. So one day I was helping one of them write a grievance about something simple, probably about a medical. He wasn't getting dental care. And we went back to our cells and my door opened and they called me to the offices, like 7 officers in there. And, I'm like kind of petrified. And I said, yes, sir. You understand you called for me? What's up? And he said, Vaughn, you like ends, using the N word. And I said, I like everybody. I kind of behave as if until somebody crosses me, I try to treat everybody equally. We see you helping them ends write grievances one more time. We're going to have you beat half to death, blah, blah, blah. Don't you know what we can do to you? Where are you from, boy? I said, I'm from New York City. Everybody generally gets along there. I don't know what it's like all the way out here. It's like the way western part of the state, but it was blatantly racist, and I almost got killed for helping, some black guys with their paperwork.
Wow.
Pretty eye-opening for somebody.
Well, William, you got a hell of a story, man. We hope everybody, enjoyed this interview. Like we said, if you want to find more about, more information about his experiences with Robert Durst, go pick that up. Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst, available. And I'm sure this is on everywhere you can get books, right? Amazon, all that good stuff.
On my website, williamsteeleauthor.com, and also the links in the description of official William Steele Instagram and YouTube.
Absolutely. We'll put all that stuff in our show notes for our audience members to go check you out, because I got a feeling once they see this interview, you've done a great job at feeding just enough. They're going to be quite hungry, and they're going to want the whole story. So go there and get it, and we will definitely sit back down before your show comes out. And then after that's out and it gets going, we'll check back in and kind of see what other updates you got, what other projects you're working on. And, just keep it up, man. I like your style. I like what you're doing.
Thank you.
Definitely, I consider you a friend from here on out, my friend. I wish you nothing but the best.
A&E Network, Inmate to Roommate, August 18th. Thank you.
August 18th. All right, my friend. Well, I am Hollywood Wade. That was William Steele, and unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all-new episode of Crime and Entertainment. William, we appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for watching.